Hey everybody, Tom Sega from Duluth Pack, and this is the Duluth Pack podcast, Leader of the Pack. Our leader of the pack today is Dalton Hessel. He is the creative director and founder at Northern Nerd, and he's done a whole bunch of other stuff as well. Dalton, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me on the show, Tom. I appreciate it.
So, before we get going, this whole Northern Nerd, I mean, how did you come up with that before we find out how you were young?
Yeah,
You did when you were young. You still are young for crying out loud.
right. Yeah. So how it came about is, we're all interested in something, right? And we all kind of geek out over different things, whether it's sports or comic books or music, you name it. There's something you can really nerd out about. And for me, what I really nerd out about is northern Wisconsin, or my hometown of Hayward, Wisconsin. So that's kind of how the Northern Nerd came to be, and it's kind of stuck ever since. So yeah, that's
And
what I go by.
sports is obviously part of your life because if you look over your right shoulder, you're obviously a Packers fan. Now, a bunch of our listeners may have just turned this off for me
Right.
saying that. So we hope they don't. But you know
My
what? You
wife's a
got
Vikings fan. My wife's a
it.
Vikings fan, so there's my saving grace there.
Well, I don't know. Maybe that's even worse. Maybe we have no
True.
listeners at this point. No, I'm kidding. Everyone's got to have something to love, right? But
Yep.
Dalton, let's go. Well, I would say way back, but since you're a pretty young guy, let's go back to your childhood. And did you grow up in northern Wisconsin? And what was your childhood like growing up in the north woods of Wisconsin? And just bring us forward from there after that.
Yeah, definitely. So I grew up in Hayward, Wisconsin, which is a town of roughly 2,000 people. Born and raised here, and just really loved being involved in anything that I could. My mom was a person that loved to volunteer us, or told us to do a lot of stuff as kids, like, hey, you're coming along. We're going to be at all these different community events. So whether it was Muskie Fest or the Lumberjack World Championships or the American Burr Combiner, there's tons of different events that happen here in Hayward, even though it's a pretty small town. There's a lot going on for it. And so would always take along for those things. And I think that really developed an appreciation for those events, and also just my community in general. And something I didn't realize until I was a little bit older, that appreciation was there. Because, when you're 8 years old, you probably don't wake up in the morning and go, I would really love to be a pooper scooper in this parade. Most of the time you want to be like watching cartoons, eating cereal, that kind of stuff. But the older I've gotten, the more I've grown to appreciate all those little things that my mom got us involved with, but also just growing up and doing a bunch of different sports as well. Because in a small town, you pretty much have to play three sports in order for those things to happen. So as a kid, playing football, basketball, baseball, and then having my dad be along there as our baseball coach and everything like that. That's where a lot of my memories with my dad stem from as a kid, is just out on the baseball field, or listening to Bob Euchre call Brewers game or stuff like that with the radio on as we're hitting at the Little League field. So I really loved growing up in the area, and just, all the community members being able to, my wife kind of gives me flack for this, but being able to, like, whenever we go for a walk throughout town, like being able to wave to most of the cars that pass by, because I know most of the people in the area. She's like, you should just run for mayor at this point. And I don't plan on doing that, by the way, but that's something that she often jokes about.
Hey, on this podcast, that's the one thing we want to keep away from here, Dalton, is we don't go into politics here.
Right. Yeah, I'm going to stay away from it. Don't worry.
I'll just call you Mayor Dalton from now on.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that you volunteered, or your mom volunteered you at Lumberjack Days. For our listeners, and I mean, Hayward, come on, you're in Lumberjack territory, but what is Lumberjack Days?
Yeah, so the Lumberjack World Championships usually take place towards the end of July or early August. And what it is, and actually a bunch of my friends can be these different events, and again, totally nerding out about it, but like there's a thing called the boom run. So that's where they string a bunch of logs together and run across the water and then run back for time. There's a thing called the single buck saw. So you're sawing away at a log of wood as fast as you can. There's the speed pole climb, which is they call them the loony bin, because it's just crazy to see guys go up 90 feet in the air and then come racing back down. So a bunch of different stuff that just stemmed from the early logging days, and that's kind of how Hayward came to be. Was it was a logging community and everything. So it's going back to like its heritage and making it into timber sports is what they call it. So it's a really fun thing to watch if you haven't seen it before.
Have you tried any of those?
Um, Not really. So I stuck to most like the original sports, like with football, basketball, and baseball. But I tried out log rolling, I think for the first time when I was 24 years old, and I think I could stay on the log for maybe 5 seconds. It's a lot harder than it looks, folks.
Question is, I've watched these on TV. It's like the steel log championships or timber championships. And these look like people could get hurt. You're 90 feet climbing up a pole, and when you come down, it's like, how don't their hips stay up there when they're coming down so fast? At these events, do people get hurt?
From time to time, I think they might, but I haven't seen anything catastrophic, thankfully. They actually wear like chainmail socks. So like when they're chopping away, if for whatever reason the axe happens to they miss or something like that, there's at least a little protection so they're not chopping off their big toe or anything like that. Yeah, for those speed pole climbers though, I don't know how they do it. It just hurts my hips just watching that as they come down, because they got to brace themselves and like hit a certain mark each time they come down, and it just looks really painful. So I don't know if they have like a 20-year career. Maybe it's a shorter window of like 5 to 10 years doing that.
Maybe the best career doing that was being the volunteer to do the pooper scooper.
Exactly. Yep.
A lot safer. So tell us about Muskie Fest then, because is not Hayward the muskie capital of the world and has the largest muskie that's like 30 feet tall and stuff in Hayward?
Yeah. Yep. So Muskie Fest happens, I want to say, the third weekend in June every year in Hayward. And what it is just like a celebration of our community and, yes, being known as the muskie capital of the world. Although I think there is some other towns that want to like battle Hayward over who's the real muskie capital of the world, which would be an interesting battle. I don't know how that would go down, how you do that, have a big fishing contest or something. But it's just a celebration of our community. It's like a lot of opportunities for the Hayward graduating classes to come back together for like a little reunion. This year I'll have my 10-year reunion, so we're getting together for that at Muskie Fest, and it's just yeah, a fun town celebration. And going back to that big giant muskie that you can walk in, it's the National Fishing Hall of Fame is here in Hayward, and they actually filmed a 1980s horror movie based off of the muskie. It's called Blood Hook. And so it was like this like killer fisherman and everything like that. It's a really cheesy movie, but it was filmed in Hayward. And they show it every Muskie Fest now too. They have for the past, this will be the third year of it. But we do that together at the Park Theater where we play the movie, and people like, it's like a cult classic film. Like people come dressed up in costume and everything like that, like shout out the lines like it's the Rocky Horror Picture Show. It's just an amazing time.
At Muskie, by the way, folks, a muskie is a freshwater fish.
Yes.
For the people who don't know what a muskie is. But Dalton, so then you go on, you go to college and you get your Bachelor of Science in elementary education and teaching. So you made a decision to go be a school teacher.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was something that came about my senior year of high school. I kind of had to decide. I kind of wanted to go into journalism, but also wanted to be a teacher. And I just thought, well, you can make a great impact doing journalism. I thought I could do something within the elementary education realm, because I didn't see a lot of males in elementary education. And it was something that I felt that there was a need for. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with the show Boy Meets World, but I was a big fan of Mr. Feeney, and just wanted to be someone's Mr. Feeney. So he was he was a teacher that just was very impactful on the show and kind of followed the main characters as they went along throughout their schooling. And I just think if I could make that kind of an impact on the lives of my students, then that's just going to have a ripple effect for generations to come.
But while you're in college, you became self-employed as a writer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I was still able to pursue that passion. So it was something that I wrote my first book my senior year of high school. It was like a 100-page book, and it was just something that I really wanted to do. I just kind of set out like by the end of my senior year of high school, I want to write a book. Now, it was a self-published book, and all my works have been like self-published, but it's been great just to work on that craft continually. And now I do more. I'd say the last three books that I've written have been more poetry rather than like a full novel or things like that. But it's just something I really enjoy doing, and it's just a big passion of mine that I'm still able to continue to do.
So your first book's 100 pages. What's the name of it and what's it about so our listeners can go find it?
Oh, so my first book, I actually, so now that I don't have it available anymore, just because like looking back at it, it was just like such like a rough copy. But it was kind of one of those things that I just wanted to do. But I'd say my books that you can find now are on Amazon. It's if you just search Dalton Hessel, you should be able to find them. But my first book's called The Little Green Notebook. And it's called that because I used to write a bunch of times in like coffee shops throughout Eau Claire where I went to college, and would have this little green notebook that I got from the dollar store and would just write my poems in there. And I still have them in like a safe box in my house of all the notebooks that I wrote the books from. Um, they smell like different coffee shops from throughout the area. But I have the little green notebook. I have letters to her, which was letters to my future wife. And so the inspiration for that book came from, again, senior year of high school. I made a promise to myself that wherever I traveled to solo before, like I met my wife, I would collect postcards from those different places. And so as I traveled, would pick up these postcards and just write like exactly where I was, what I was doing, and then like how I don't know, how I imagine like what my wife would think of that place. So my senior year of college, after I graduated, I took a trip to Disneyland, and and I wrote like, "Hey, you'd love this ride," kind of deal, that kind of stuff. Or I ventured out to Oregon, um, and I wrote about just how beautiful the scenery was, or the redwood trees that I got to see. So that's kind of where all that stemmed from, letters to her. And then I had a book called The Ramblings of a 20-something, which is just kind of, yeah, throughout your 20s, I mean, I'm still in my late 20s now, but you're just trying to figure life out. And it was kind of just all those thoughts on like relationships, faith, and a bunch of different stuff that happen within your 20s as you're trying to figure things out. And then the one I just came out with this past November is called A Few Words. And that's just, again, more thoughts on adulthood. And now that I'm a husband, but also I became a dad back in August of this past year. Yeah. So I got a 10-month-old at home now. So just thoughts on that and everything too. So yeah, those are
So,
all my books.
so what was, first of all, were you dating your wife when you wrote the letters to her?
No, I actually wasn't dating anyone. I was just kind of it was like a longing kind of thing.
Okay. And how has being a father now changed your writing or what you would want to write about, if it has changed it at all?
Yeah, I'd say as far as like finding the time to write has gotten harder. Well, finding the time to do anything has gotten harder, but it's all about that different time management. And I would I would say like how my writing has changed. I just want to be able to like write different things that I would be able to maybe like leave advice for her, different things like that. And just also just my perception of I don't know, being a dad, like, I don't know. Before I was a dad, I was like, I don't know how I'm gonna figure this out. But then once my daughter was brought into the world, it's like, all right, you gotta figure it out. You're gonna figure it out. Like however you go about it, it's gonna happen.
So, do you have anything in the future that you're going to write that is specifically for your daughter?
That is a good question. I haven't started like a new project yet. I've just kind of been taking it all in. But I think down the road there would definitely be a project like that.
That will be pretty cool. So, while you're still in school, so we've talked about being a self-employed writer, you've written some books. In 2015, you also become the founder of your own business called DJ Dalton. Tell us what that's all about and why you did that.
Yeah, so it's not the most creative DJ name in the world because it's just my first name. But so my dad was actually a DJ for over 25 years. So growing up, I would tag along with him to different weddings that he'd DJ, but also just different community events. Like we had a hospital picnic that he would DJ at, all that kind of stuff. And so my love for music really began with just tagging along with my dad and listening to music in the car as well. So I saw how he kind of ran his DJ business, and what I actually DJ'd my first dance when I was in seventh grade. I used his equipment, and they had like eighth grade graduation in middle school. And so um, some of the eighth grade students were like, "Hey, we know your dad DJs, and we know that you're really into music. Would you want to DJ our dance?" And got it approved and everything like that. And so I DJ'd, yeah, my first dance when I was in seventh grade. And then I also DJ'd my own eighth grade grad dance when I was in eighth grade. Um, and then once I got into college, I just thought, this would be a great way to help me pay for colleges by DJing in the summertime and DJing different events and things like that. So it just kind of took off from there. And actually DJ'd my own wedding, believe it or not. I made it happen.
How do you do that?
Well, thankfully with technology and advances in technology, I was able to queue up quite a few songs and things like that. But I queue up like 4 songs, run back, see how the crowd was doing, and then get back out on the dance floor and everything like that. So I got the approval from my wife. So she was like, "Hey, if this can save us money, we'll go for it." So
that's what I was going to say. You were being a little bit thrifty at your own wedding there to do that. So, and you pulled it off, and all went just fine.
Yep. Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
So the first dance between you and your wife, who got to pick the music then?
Well, it was a song that I know we just kind of got to liking over the years. It was a song called Poetry, actually. That was our first dance song. It's by an artist named Rabel. And yeah, it just kind of worked together because I would write poems about her and things like that. And I was like, oh, this is just the perfect song. So
did you come home while you were in school on weekends then to do gigs as well?
Yeah, I would come home on Saturday. It was mostly in the summertime. It was probably like the busiest wedding season though. So it wasn't too often that I'd have to come home to DJ. Actually, in school, I would find different events to DJ, like fraternity like formals or sorority formals that they would have within the campus community and everything like that. Or I was on the club baseball team at Eau Claire too, so we would have little events here and there too.
While you're doing all this, you were in school, you graduate school, you become a school teacher. What grade do you teach? And do you teach all subjects, or are you teaching just certain subjects?
Yeah, so I teach second grade, and I just finished my 5th year of teaching second grade. And I'm actually in my classroom right now, just because it was quieter than being at home with my 10-month-old. So, so I found a quiet spot here at school. But yeah, I teach all subjects. So I'll teach math, reading, spelling, all of our writing, things like that. And then some social studies and science gets worked in there as well. So it's been a ton of fun. I work with a great team of teachers here in Hayward, and there's never a dull day in second grade. I kind of keep track of different quotes of the day from my students. And that might be my next book, is just quotes from a second grade classroom, just because what they say is so off the wall sometimes.
Well, it's pure and it's honesty, right?
Definitely. Yeah.
So
yep, they let you know.
For second graders, what is your favorite subject to teach them?
I would say my favorite subject has to be reading. I really love getting into the books, voicing different characters and things like that. I think my favorite book to read with my students is probably Charlotte's Web, is because I just love doing the voice of Templeton the rat, when he's just, I don't know, he's a little sassy character and comes down and he goes, "What do you guys think about that?" And the students just love it.
So you really connect with your students, and is that one of the ways that you find that you can help, instead of just teaching subject matter, that you're trying to connect with them?
Yeah, definitely. Like building relationships with your students is definitely helpful at the I mean, setting it up at the beginning of the year, really getting to know your students and who they are and what their interests are. And that way, maybe you can create a lesson around one of their favorite movies or TV shows and give them like a math problem. So I love, so kind of with the Northern Nerd, I love video games, and my students love like Super Mario Brothers. So some of our math problems will have to do with like Mario collects this many coins and Luigi collects this many. How many more coins does Mario have than Luigi? And they're like, oh, this is so cool. We're doing a math problem with Mario and Luigi or Sonic the Hedgehog or different things like that. And that way they're able to, I mean, they're still doing the math, but also they're seeing what they're interested in as well.
So what is the most difficult part of teaching second graders?
Oh, that's a good question. I'd say the most difficult part of teaching second graders is probably some days just being at their level as far as like energy goes. I've found that especially as being like a new dad, you don't get as much sleep as you're commonly used to. So this year was just like, all right, making sure that I tried to go to bed at a decent hour. And even if I didn't get, I mean, if I got woken up throughout the night and things like that, still being on and being there for the students and being ready to go and being that smiling face that they can see. And that's not always the easiest thing to do, but it's something that you're a consistent force in in those students' lives, and you're somebody that those kids can look to and say like, oh, Mr. Hassel's going to be there for me if I'm having a rough day or things like that, and just being that person that they can look to and just know that they're going to have a great day with.
What would you say that is your most satisfying part of dealing with students and in specific, obviously, second grade students?
Yeah, I'd say one of the more satisfying parts has got to be, it's cliche to say, but those light bulb moments that your students have. And so let's say that a student comes in at like a lower reading level than what grade level is expected. But then as the school year goes on, that you see that student getting more and more interested in reading and getting more and more fluent with their reading, and they're not stumbling over their words anymore. They're reading fluently and are just getting like falling in love with the reading process. Or if a student's struggling with math and all of a sudden they're doing 3-digit addition or 3-digit subtraction. Or I had a few students this year that were even they wanted to be challenged a little bit more, and they wanted to do more multiplication and division. And they'd come back to my desk and I'd write out some problems for them, and they'd get it right. And just like the electricity or how much they would just light up at them getting the answer correct was just so fulfilling as a teacher. And so I think that's one of the most rewarding parts as a teacher, is just your students enjoying the process of learning. And even when there's days where they don't get everything right, they come back again and learn from those mistakes and are just willing to continue that process and greet those challenges with a smile.
Dalton, you're a young guy, but obviously you were in second grade quite a while ago. You teach second graders today. I think of myself as an old man. I was in second grade. I think there were still dinosaurs on the earth. And how has curriculum, I know that I can see how it's changed since I was there many years ago, but how about in the short years since you were there till today, the curriculum that you're teaching? How do you see changes in that, and where is it better, and where would you say as a teacher it's not better?
Yeah. So what's actually kind of cool about, from growing up in a small town and then coming back to teach in that small town is I get to teach. One of the other teachers in second grade was my second grade teacher. And so the first year that I was teaching with her was a little bit awkward, because I was like, all right, well, do I call you by your first name? Do I address you as Mrs. Eucnus? What do I do here? But I've gotten more and more comfortable with it. I'd say the biggest thing that's changed is probably just the different amount of technology that's incorporated. And that can be a positive thing and a negative thing. I mean, depending on how much time you're using it. So I remember when I was in second grade, we had like overhead projectors. And so we would come up and get to write on the overhead projector with the different slides and the marker and everything. And now we get smart boards, which are a great tool to have, but also we get Chromebooks as well. So students can have like time where they get some extension activities with their math and their reading, which can be a great thing to have those students that might want a little bit more of a challenge. We can put them on those different computer programs. But I'd say it's a balance with that. You don't want to use too much of that technology where they're so heavily reliant on it, where if for whatever reason the internet goes out, you can still function as a class. You don't need to be so reliant on those computers. But what's crazy was my first year of teaching was when COVID happened. And so that was just like, I was like, all right, well, I guess this is what it is now. They were the rest of my team. So I'm the youngest member on my team by 10 years. And so I was kind of like the IT guy because it was like we had to record video lessons and things like that. So on Fridays, some of the other teachers would come down into my classroom. I called it my studio, and we would help record different lessons for math and reading and stuff like that. So yeah, it's changed. It's changed quite a bit, just even from, I mean, not only from when I was in second grade, but just from the pandemic and everything like that too. But I'd say, I'm lucky to work in a school that just does a great job with, having everyone bounce ideas off of each other and working together as a team. I'm just really thankful for that.
Are you lucky enough to have a community that has a lot of parental interaction with school, and you're not an island on your own, or you're not the bad guy?
Right. Yeah, I'd say for the most part, it's good. It's good parent involvement and things like that, whether we're having something happening here at school, whether it's the winter concert or field day or a field trip, or just even their reading that they do at home. Just if students can read even for 10 to 15 minutes a night at home, it makes such a big difference in what they're able to do in the classroom and what they're able to retain and retell about the story. And then it just goes a long way. If just even that little amount of time that they spend at home reading is so fundamental in their success.
Dalton, let me ask you a question. You obviously, while you were doing gigs while you're in junior high school, became a self-employed writer while you're in college. You were doing the DJ business while you're in college. Have you always been an entrepreneur? Were you mowing people's lawns and shoveling the sidewalks in the winter to make a few bucks?
Yep, that was always kind of my game. Was, I used to be really into like drawing, and my grandma worked at the vet center in town, and sometimes they would have like these little craft shows and things like that, and she would let me set up, and I would just draw like different caricatures of people. And this was when I was probably in second grade or third grade, and I'll just draw little things like that and then sell them for maybe like $2 or something like that. But like if I got $20, to me as a young kid, that's like $100. So it was awesome. And then I would shovel a lot in the wintertime, mow lawns, lemonade stands, all that kind of stuff. So I would say, yeah, always kind of had a entrepreneur mindset from when I was young.
Did that come from your dad being the DJ?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it came from that. And then just also my mom would do a lot of different stuff as well. Through the volunteering, but also she would have little things that she would do as well.
Oh, so she volunteered too. She didn't just volunteer you to volunteer.
Right. Yeah,
Oh,
she was
okay.
along. Well, and my brother and my sister was involved too. So I wasn't the only one getting that.
All right, Mom, way to go. So now let's come even a little bit farther forward. And in 2018, you create and become the creative director of the Northern Nerd. So you started out here talking about it, that, hey, we're up north and everyone nerds out on something. Now tell us what your original thought was for the Northern Nerd, and let's just go through it on what goes into your business.
Yeah, sounds good. So, it was something that just kind of came about when I was in my apartment in Eau Claire. It was kind of a snowy day in April that we had, and one of my roommates was playing video games, and I was just thinking about like, all right, I really want to have a way to have a creative outlet for myself. So a place where I can do a lot of my writings. So whether that's like a blog post about like a movie review or a restaurant review or just things happening in the area, or wanted a space to have like videos and things like that as well. And so I was thinking, all right, Northern Nerd. I like the way that sounds. And I would rush over to my roommate and show him like a logo design that I was working on. He's like, yeah, that looks good. And then I started creating a website and was like, all right, what if I had this? Race over to him again. Oh, what do you think of this? He's like, yeah, that looks great. Go back. And so like, I don't know, just I remember that snowy Saturday very vividly just by kind of laying it all out what I wanted to do. And from there, then it's just been a really nice creative outlet for me. So I've been able to do a bunch of photography at different events. So like the Lumberjack World Championships or the American Birkebeiner, or even photographing some of the high school baseball games. So I coach the JV baseball team. But then I also, when I'm able to attend the varsity games when we don't have a JV game or it's playoffs, I'll go and get pictures there too. So I love sports photography, love capturing different events. So that's part of the Northern Nerd, as well as doing photography for Airbnbs or VRBOs, or getting video at different restaurants as well. So I'd say that's another facet of the Northern Nerd. And just writing about just all these different things that are happening in our area, but then also highlighting different business owners and sharing their stories as well. Because I've always wanted it to be a space where I could just share my story and share other people's stories and just have it be a hub for people to look to and say, that's Northern Wisconsin. What's life like in Northern Wisconsin? Don't like just tell me a ad, but also share your story on like why your space is important or why this event is important and things of that nature.
Dalton, how do people find you? So before we get to that, folks, our guest today is Dalton Hessel. He's the creative director at the Northern Nerd. He's also quite the entrepreneur. He's done all kinds of things. And by the way, he has I guess I'll call it a real job. He's a school teacher, teaching our children to be great people in the world. But how do people find you at the Northern Nerd?
Yeah, so you can find me on Facebook. Just type in the Northern Nerd, or I'm on Instagram as well and then also on just kind of getting started on YouTube. Started posting on there a little bit more, but you can also find my podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts as well, wherever you get your podcasts. I sit down with a bunch of different people from the Hayward area and just talk about life in the Northwoods and things like that. So it's been a lot of fun to be able to do that.
So you had some overnight success because you've had some videos going viral. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so there's been quite a few, which has been pretty crazy to say. There was one that I had 2 years ago where it was me explaining what the giant ski event was all about. Now, Tom, have you heard of the giant ski before?
The giant ski event, I know what that is down in your area, but I'm not sure if I know if the giant ski.
Okay, so the giant ski, here it is. It's teams of 6 get together and they'll be on a pair of giant skis. So they strap into these giant skis, and this takes place on Thursday night of Berkey Week here in Hayward. And so these teams of 6, they go down Main Street, and it's a race to see who can finish the fastest. And I did a video kind of just explaining what that event was like and showed the event taking place, and there was a costume contest and everything like that. And a group of my friends from the DNR are called the Nimrods, and they won like 5 years in a row. And there are these guys in like stormy crubbers and things like that, and just flannel and all that good stuff. So that kind of just took off, and people just love that. And they're like, we should do this. We need to participate in this event next year. And that was something real cool to see.
Well, did the DNR guys win that year?
They did. Yeah. They've since retired. But they made 2 movies, which you can find on YouTube.
No
like
kidding.
2 full-length movies talking about like giant ski lore and everything like that.
So what you're talking about for our listeners, if they don't know, and as soon as you started talking about it, I remember seeing this in the news and everything else, is that you get a team of 6, you have 2 skis, but all 6 of you stand on the skis and you're all strapped in and you have to work as a team and obviously race down the street.
Yeah, it's pretty comical to watch because, I mean, you have your teams that are efficient that can get down really quickly, but then you also have a lot of people falling over. I remember one year there was a team from a local church in town, and the pastor fell out, but his shoes stayed in, and he's walking down Main Street with just his socks, and you see just the shoe that's left in the ski strap. And it was pretty comical. Yeah, so I'd say that was one of the viral videos. And then I've had some kind of like dad joke ones go viral where I stepped outside, opened my front door, and had a bunch of coffee mugs outside. And opened my door and I go, "Gosh, it's muggy out here." And a lot of people enjoyed that one.
And how does that impact you? I mean, everyone in business somehow is trying to get something to go viral to impact their business. How did those viral videos impact you and your business?
Yeah, I'd say it just really got a lot of people familiar with my page. So if they'd never heard of the Northern Nerd before, it really gained my followers not only on Instagram or Facebook, but also TikTok as well. And so to see a larger audience interact with my stuff was great to see. And then maybe they'll see sometimes like my pictures of sports and they'll maybe reach out to me like, "Hey, could you photograph here?" Or different things that I post. So I don't try to just stick to one thing that I post. Like I post a lot about teaching and stuff that's relatable to other teachers. But I don't want to just like pin myself in a corner. I want to be able to do a lot of different things. And I think being able to highlight Hayward is one of those things that I want to do, as well as share some of my writings and kind of, I don't know, have a full plate to work with there.
So, Dalton, this is a business, and how do you get compensated from a business when you're posting content like you're doing?
Yeah, so it depends on how many views some of your stuff gets too. So whether you're able to monetize. So over the past 2 years, I'd say I gained enough of an audience where I was able to start monetizing off of the amount of views or shares or interactions that your stuff gets. But then it's also opened the door for some of those opportunities where people hire me to make videos that they want done for their business and things. So if they see that I have a certain amount of audience, then they're able to say like, "Hey, I really want to work with this guy. I like what he does and like his angle on this and things of that nature."
What kind of jobs have you done for other businesses, video or photography work?
Yeah, so I've done several for some Main Street businesses like Outdoor Ventures or Lures of the North. I did some for the Spider Lake Motel, um, for some people that own Airbnbs up here, VRBOs, um, Norvado, which is like a telecommunications company. I was their Norvado Northern Nerd, so I gave just different like tech tips and things like that. So it's kind of started off with a bunch of area businesses, and just excited to see where it goes from here.
What were your biggest challenges when, 2018 to 19, 19 to 20, as you progressed along with your business? What were your biggest challenges, and then how have those challenges changed, and how have you overcome them?
Yeah, I'd say some of the biggest challenges is just like continually trying to think of different ideas, and just be an innovator when it comes to that, and not just get stuck doing the same thing, but tap into that creativity daily has been a big thing that I want to continue to do. So one of the things that I did for a long time was I would get up, and this was before I was married and had a child and everything, but I would wake up at 6 a.m. and go to the local coffee shop here in Hayward and would just write. I would write every morning from 6 until I had to leave to come to school. And that was I did that every day. And so would get $1.50 coffee refill and just go to work for that hour and a half that I got. And I think that was one of the biggest things. And I'm not able to do that, but I am able to find it in different ways where I'm able to be consistent with things that I do throughout the day. And so by logging those reps and things like that and kind of stacking those days, it's helped create a system where I'm just able to like be successful through that. So by that repetition and consistency, that's been the biggest thing for me, is just having that consistent thing that I do each and every day.
I'm assuming as a creative person, once in a while you run into a creative block.
Yes.
How do you overcome that?
Um, I just did it today actually. I go for a walk and just listen to like I don't know, some classical music or some film scores, and it just kind of shifts my perspective. And that's one of the things that I love living in a small town is I'm able to go for walks pretty often, and like it's not that busy, so it's just able to like clear my mind, and that's something that I often do to try to get those thoughts out or tap into that creativity is just get my body moving. So whether it's going for a walk or going for a bike ride, that's usually how I kind of get out of that writer's block or creative block.
What is the biggest misconception you would find when it comes to content creation for the layman like myself out there?
The greatest misconception, I would say one of the biggest things is like, I don't know, I want to be as genuine as possible in everything that I do. I don't want it to come across as fake. And I think sometimes it can be misconstrued that way where somebody's like, oh, they're just smiling here while they create the content, and then they're just like miserable in real life. Where it's just like, I don't want to like have this facade where it's like, oh, I'm a happy-go-lucky guy, but then like if you see me at a restaurant, it would be like just a curmudgeon. I don't want that to be. I want you to see like somebody experiencing joy not only through like the video, but then also out in real life. I want to embody that the best I can as well. So I'd say um, really what you see is what you get with what I put out there. It's genuine. It's who I am.
Oh, that's really awesome to, hear that it's you. This, what we're seeing and whether I go on skates, saunas, and small town fun,
Mhm.
or I run into you down at the corner and what you wrote about here, I run into you on the corner or any of your other videos that you're doing, that it's the same person. And I would assume that's a challenge once in a while to just always stay true to that.
Yeah, definitely. But I know it's something that I've really, I don't know, one of my codes I want to live by is just like try to be as positive about things as much as I can, and just try to be, I'd say, foolishly optimistic, which is just like trying to see the best in every situation and try to make the most of it. And like, even though life can get hard sometimes and it can get down, my mother-in-law recently had a stroke and is now living with us. And I'd say that's probably one, I mean, it's been very, like, it's definitely changed our lives, but trying to see like the good that comes from that. So now she gets to spend more time with our daughter and gets to have more moments and memories with our daughter and interactions and things like that. So just trying to make the most of every situation that you can. And so I think that's probably been the biggest thing that I try to live by is not getting too bogged down by that stuff, but trying to remain optimistic.
You know what's crazy is 15 years ago here at our business, uh, they came to me in marketing and they said, we need to form a position that is for social media and PR and all this stuff. And, for an old guy like me, that was so hard to wrap my head around. And it's a short 15 years ago, which might seem long to some people, but it's truly not in the life of a business. And I'm like, excuse me, but so you're telling me you want to have us pay somebody to play on Facebook all day? And they went, exactly. And now we got all these social mediums we're doing here, and it's all about content, and it's all about being relevant to your customer, who is the people that are reading that. Dalton, in your business at the Northern Nerd, what would you have as a business when you start putting goals out there that, hey, year 1 to 5, I want to create this? What would you say in 5 years from now that you want to see the Northern Nerd as, and how are you going to get there?
Yeah, I think what I really pride myself in is creating community. And one of the ways that I do that is through having different community events. So whether it's a skating party at the small town hockey rink that we have called the Tot Lot, we, I mean, have little parties like that, or we had pizza parties to start the school year and to end the school year with wood-fired pizzas, or having different sauna events, or we had a pumpkin smash event. So on November 1st, the day after Halloween, we would meet in the municipal parking lot. I would have heavy rock music going, and people would just bring their pumpkins and smash them. And then I would scoop them up and take most of the pumpkin remains that were still in, like, edible for the deer and everything, at the Wilderness Walk, the local zoo that we have in town. And they'd be able to have that. And then um, what are some other events that we did? We did a pumpkin painting party. So I think just one of the ways that I would want to be still operating 5 years from now is having those events, and having those events that people can look to each and every year, like, hey, this is awesome that we're getting together and we were able to do this. Because in a small town, like, yes, there's a lot of people that you know, but it also can be kind of lonely sometimes as well. And so if you don't have that community to go to, you can feel pretty isolated, especially like in the winter time. And so I want to give people different community events where they can just come out, be themselves, maybe meet some other people that share the same interests. So I'd say that would be one of my goals. I would also say another one of my goals for my business would be to be able to travel more with the Airbnb, VRBO, videography and photography. So I have a friend that does that. Like, that's his whole job. So he's not like a teacher, and he's the sole thing is traveling and taking pictures and stuff like that. And I still want to remain in the classroom, but I think that having the summertime allows me that opportunity to maybe make some of those trips and be able to do that with my family as well. And just make that happen. So I would say that would be another one of my goals. And then also, I would just say to continue my podcast and just hearing different people's stories and just getting to know people better, and giving those people a voice to share what their life is like in the Northwoods, and how living in our area has impacted them in a positive manner. So I'd say those would be the goals for the next 5 years. And I think how I'm going to achieve that is, again, going back to that consistency, trying to be as consistent as possible with my process, and then also just surrounding myself with a good support system. So I think I have a great support system right now with my wife and my daughter and my friends and family, and just continue to rely on them if there's, I don't know, things that I want to bounce ideas off of, or just need, some help with running those events. It's been great to have their help thus far.
Dalton, how in the heck do you balance all this? You got a lot going on here.
It is a juggling act for sure. I would say just trying to figure out what's most important, and then work your way down from there. So first and foremost, my family is the most important. So whatever is going on with them, that's going to come first. But then after that, then go into, all right, what's most important for me today to accomplish? And after my wife and my daughter are taken care of and everybody's good to go, what can I accomplish today that's going to make me better for tomorrow? And that's kind of how I try to take it day by day, rather than you can get pretty bogged down if you try to look at a whole month's worth of work. But if you say, what can I accomplish today that's going to make me successful, then that's where you make that progression, and that's how you're going to continue that success.
Holy moly, you got it all figured out here. This is awesome.
Not quite.
I got to go back and be your age. Don't let you figure it out for me. Dalton, who inspires you from a career standpoint the most, and why?
I would say, so there is a musical artist that I look up to very much, and his name is John Bellion, and he's an artist, but he's also like a music producer, and he has videos on YouTube, like his process of making his songs, and just the joy that he finds in creating those songs. And I watch those often if I want to like go for inspiration. Now I don't make music or sing or do anything like that, but I see his joy that he finds in the creative process. And if I don't know, if there's a day where I'm feeling down or things like that, I'll look to those videos and say, like, all right, there's so much joy radiating out of this man during this process. Like, how can I tap into that and find my joy today in what it is that I'm doing? So I'd say I look to him often for that, but also just look to, I would say, people that are kind of doing the same thing. So I know that you had Dude Dad on not too long ago. And I would say I look to him, look to Miles, the You Betcha guy, and then also Charlie Barron's. I mean, I'm far from what they're doing right now. They have a huge audience, but I would say like, I mean, just the joy that they experience in creating their shorts and their videos and things like that. I think they inspire me as well to tap into how I can incorporate the
You know what
Northwoods.
all three of those guys have in common?
What is that?
They love Duluth Pack sweatshirts.
I love it. Yes.
So we're gonna have to get you some Duluth Pack sweatshirts.
Sounds good.
So Dalton, we're gonna shift a little bit here. We're gonna get away from your career. We're gonna
Okay.
do what's called, catch this one, the packed question segment.
I like it.
And we're just going to do a little bit of rapid fire so our people can get to know you a little bit more as a person at the tail end, because I cannot believe that we're almost up at an hour already.
Oh, that's crazy.
I know. This is really fun. What's your favorite movie, Dalton?
Ooh, my favorite movie. I actually have it with me in my classroom. It's called The Iron Giant. It's one of my favorites from when I was a kid. Came out in 1999. Absolute favorite movie. A lot of life lessons to be learned in that.
Are you able to play that for your students in school?
Yes. Yep. I play it towards the end of the school year, just kind of like my last thing. Because I tell them in the beginning of the school year that it's my favorite movie. And then towards the end of the year, we get to watch it.
Favorite place that you have ever traveled? And you can't say Hayward, Wisconsin.
Oh, shucks. Pick that one out. I would say my favorite place that I've traveled to would have to be Oregon. And we just got back from a family trip out there this past week. But it's so beautiful. The landscape, the 1 minute you're in these huge trees, and the next year, I mean, Crater Lake is just amazing. So I would say that's my favorite spot for sure.
Do you have another bucket list place that you'd like to travel to?
Oh, I haven't been like to Europe at all. And my wife gets on me a lot for this because she's been to like 15 different countries, and I've been to Canada. So just barely into Canada. So getting over to Europe eventually is on the list.
You know what the thing is, though, if you travel south, all the people are going to ask where you're from in Canada. So you can say that, because I don't know if you know this, but Hayward, Wisconsin is north of about 70% of the population of Canada.
Right.
What is your biggest fear? And maybe 10 months ago that changed.
Yeah. Biggest fear. I mean, if we want to get super real here, I would say like something happening to my daughter. I would say that would be like my biggest fear. Now that I'm a parent. So I would say that'd be the top thing.
Favorite band or artist? I think maybe you tickled on this one earlier.
Yeah, I mentioned John Bellion, but I would also have to say I'm a bit of an old soul when it comes to music. I love James Taylor, Jim Croce, Frank Sinatra. Like I have a record player at home, and that's another thing that I nerd out about is my records. So I would say like, yeah, the old crooners, Nat King Cole, Dean Martin, love them all.
Now I know why you wrote that blog post on vinyl.
Yeah, that's where it stems from.
See, I did my homework here.
You
Dalton.
did. I appreciate it, Tom.
And the last question I have for you is, what is the best piece of life advice that you, Dalton, have ever received?
I'd say it comes from my high school baseball coach. So he said, there are two things in this life you can control, your attitude and your effort. And this is something that he said constantly, and that's something that'll stick with me. So your attitude, how you respond to different things that happen. So not only in the game of baseball, because you have your highs and low points in baseball, but also in life. So how do you respond to those highs? How do you respond to those lows? And then also your effort, like what effort are you putting into it? When you are dealt a bad hand, how do you rise above that occasion, and what effort do you put into it? And so I would say, again, that's the biggest piece of advice I got. There are two things in life you can control, your attitude and your effort.
Wow. That will take you a long way.
Definitely.
And Dalton, you know what? You have been so inspirational here. Just the way you just attack life on a daily basis, all the things you've accomplished at your young age. You're just one really very inspirational human being. And folks, our special guest today is Dalton Hessel. He's the creative director of The Northern Nerd. Dalton, can you tell our listeners one more time where they can find you on social and website and all the good stuff?
Yeah, definitely. So you can find me on Instagram at The Northern Nerd. on Facebook at The Northern Nerd, on TikTok at The Northern Nerd, and then also thenorthernnerd.com. And then you can also find my podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.
Dalton, I cannot thank you enough for being here today. Thank you, and we appreciate you.
Thanks, Tom. I appreciate it as well.
And folks, until next time, unplug from the indoors and recharge in the outdoors.